Hey, my name is John Santaferraro, and this is The Digital Analyst, where AI makes sense and digital dominance begins.
The Digital Analyst with John Santaferraro, powered by Insight Jam.
Today's podcast excites me because we are watching a new world emerge right before our eyes. 6 months ago, I predicted that within the next year, we would be seeing the waning of this whole hype and discussion and explosion around generative AI. And there would be this upsurge of conversations around AI agents and agentic architectures. And today, that is our topic, AI agents and agentic architectures. It's happening. It's beginning to overtake the discussion on generative AI. In today's podcast, my guest is the unforgettable John Thompson, or maybe I should say the John K. Thompson. John is the global head of AI at Ernst & Young, now affectionately known as EY. He's also an adjunct professor at the University of Michigan with more than 40 years of experience in data, analytics, and AI. John is the author of 4 books: Analytics, How to Win with Intelligence, Building Analytics Teams, Data for All, and Causal Artificial Intelligence. More importantly for this podcast, John leads a team of engineers and architectures that are building out an agentic architecture ready to propel us into the world of AI agents, a world where there will be more AI agents than employees in most companies. And like I said, that's the topic of today's podcast, AI agents and AI agentic architectures. Hey, a big digital welcome to John K. Thompson. John, it's so good to have you here on the Digital Analyst today. And I have to say, I have been so looking forward to this. You are one of the few people that I have talked to that really understands AI agents, especially from the standpoint of what needs to be done to realize their potential. And that is our topic today. So a big digital welcome, John. So glad you're here.
Thank you, John. Always glad to be with you. And our conversations over the last 3 or 4 months have been really exciting about agents. And I have to say, you're one of the few people that I talk to about agents who has a historical perspective on agents. Most of the people think, oh, well, it's, hey, it's GenAI agents and it started 2 months ago. And, that's, you and I know that's not true. Agents have been around for a long time. There's rule-based agents. There's, agents that are driven by, other kinds of discrete technologies or deterministic technologies. Now we're layering on probabilistic technologies with GenAI and other areas. So agents is an exciting area, and I'm so glad that we're here talking about it.
Yeah, awesome. It was about probably 6 or 7 months ago that I predicted that all of this hype and conversation about generative AI was going to go away, and AI agents and agentic architectures would actually become the topic of discussion. And I'm starting to see it. It's come up from a kind of a rumble down at the bottom to kind of start to encroach on Gen AI. And I've even heard people talking about Gen AI agents now. Instead of talking about generative AI, Gen AI agents. We're talking about Gen AI as if it's AI agents. So what do you think? What's going on? It's like it is bubbling up, isn't it?
It's happening. I'm as you know, I'm writing my 5th book right now, and I just wrote the section 3. It's 3 chapters on Gen AI. So it's the history, it's the impact, and it's the future. And basically, the future chapter was all on agents. And I started actually writing about it and saying Gen AI agents because of our conversations. Because what you and I were talking about is that there are agents before generative AI, and there are agents without generative AI. And now there are agents that are really, really powerful and exciting with Gen AI. So I don't know if, not to date the podcast or anything like that, but, last week, Anthropic came out with Wow, and, some other people. I think Google came out with an announcement on their agent framework, their agentic agent framework. And I saw a demo of Google's technology that's still in the lab. I saw it this last Saturday when I was up at Michigan in Detroit at the Google Developer Fest, or Google Developer Group Dev Fest. And they were showing agents that were just mind-blowingly good.
Wow.
We have talked about the whole idea of an agent being, something that handles travel, and that's easy for people to understand. And we can talk about that scenario if it makes sense. But, in the demo, they actually showed someone walking around, with a camera saying, okay, say something, tell me when you see something that makes sound. And they were panning across, they'd see a speaker, and the agent would go, oh, there's a speaker. Or, they actually brought it up to a screen and showed the screen and says, tell me what this code does. And it actually read out. It said, this is a verification feature that's using, this kind of, SOC 2 or whatever it was, authentication and verification. And then took it to a window and said, tell me where I'm at. And I said, oh, you're in the King's Cross area of London. It just amazingly great,
just based on inference, just inference. Yeah. So it knew somehow, it figured out the location, not because anybody revealed that to them or because of a connection or anything, just inference. Wow.
Yep, absolutely. So, it's very powerful. And now we're getting, for you and I, these are simple things, but for most people, it's mind-blowing that, you recognize where the cursor is on the screen and you actually move it, move it over to this or move it over to that. So you actually get the feeling that there's some intelligence behind this thing, and that's where that gets, creepy, freaky for people. But you and I know that a lot of this stuff is just programmed in the back end. It's like, okay, find the box that's, this wide by this high and move the cursor to it. And people are like, oh my God, it's alive and it's thinking and all that. No, it's not.
Yeah, we've seen too many demos, I think. You know what? Let's go back in the discussion just a little bit and talk about what is an AI agent? Because I think there's some confusion because of generative AI. There's a lot of people in the market today that think that an AI agent is a generative AI agent, but that's not it. How would you define an AI agent?
Yeah, I saw a guy, I read a guy's blog or post the other day, Azim Azar on Exponential View, and he described an AI agent as microservices with brains. And I thought,
I love
that's
it.
a pretty cool label. I like that one. And, if you take off the Gen AI agent part of it and just talk about agents, agents are generally, systems, applications, solutions, whatever label you want to put on it, that has some ability to go through a process. And it could be a process that links to another process that links to another process. So it's a way to actually navigate a workflow or navigate a problem in some way that the system is either pre-programmed to do it through rules and deterministic, statistics and things like that, or it has a combination of deterministic technologies like workflows and rules, and a combination of probabilistic technologies like neural networks, which we all powers GenAI, or maybe some kind of clustering or decision trees or something like that. So an agent is merely an application that has the ability to recognize conditions, sense, the reality of different variables, and make decisions on how to process forward.
Yeah, I love that microservices concept. I think that's going to stick with me. I think of several characteristics of an AI agent, right? It is a smaller piece of software usually, but it can be big depending on what type of agent it is. But it's usually it has some kind of autonomy, so that it's autonomous, it's active, it can do things, it can react, it can be interactive, intelligent, adaptive, and it has to be limited too, right? It's usually limited in terms of the things that it can do, because we don't want agents that are self-deterministic that can do whatever the heck they want to do, or we end up with the Terminator, right? So, so all of those things are true of an agent, but I think the ones that stand out to me most that I think can help people sort of anchor a definition is autonomous and intelligent and active, able to act.
Yes, I agree with all those things, John. There's no doubt about it. I I'm going against myself here. In the early days, people were giving Gen AI pronouns. Oh, she does this and he does that. And they were anthropomorphizing, Chat GPT and other, interactive, models. And I was like, they don't think, they don't have emotions. Don't call them he or her or she or him or any of that kind of stuff. They're not people, they're not intelligent, they're just pattern matching engines. So, then we get into these discussions and then I'm saying, okay, well, think of it this way. And then people are like, didn't you say not to anthropomorphize them? And I'm like, yes, I still stand by that. But if you can get your head wrapped around an agent or a model or a workflow, whatever unit of work lands in your head in the most comfortable way, and think about that as almost a person. All right. So, like you said, they can be proactive, they can be scheduled, they can be triggered, they can be limited, they can be governed, they can be autonomous, they can be adaptable. Those are all things people can be too. So if you think about an agent as having all those capabilities of a human, then you can start thinking about, okay, how do I govern it? The conversations I've been having internal to my day job at EY and external with other people like at University of Michigan and other conversations that I'm having is that, okay, how do we control these agents? How do we govern these agents? Well, how do we govern people? We train them, we give them training, we give them policies, we give them guidelines, we give them hard stops, we put them in jail, we prosecute them. There's all these kind of things, and you could do all those things. You can't probably put it in a jail, but you can do all those things to a model. What you want to do, models are behind many of these agents. So what you want to do is you want to set it up, or you could do it with a deterministic agent through rules as well. So not to be all Gen AI about everything, but you look at it and say, okay, I want this agent that's going to be booking airfare for me to go to all the airlines possible that have this route that I'm on. And I want it to negotiate price from where it starts down at least $100. And I only want it to iterate 5 times. And if you don't drop it by $100 and you go more than 5 times, I want you to stop. And you have to do this. And we tell this to our, people that are working for us, hey, if the price of the tickets for this play is over $60 or £100, or don't buy it. It's too expensive for me. So you have to give agents those guardrails and frameworks and boxes to operate within. And I think when you think about it from that perspective, it's not as scary. It's not as out of control. It's not as frightening for people. Now, if you set up an agent, of course, you set up an agent and you say, okay, I want you to negotiate a price. And that's all you say. You don't give it an upper limit. You don't give it a lower limit. And then the next day you get a bill for, $70,000 for compute cycles because it tried 1 billion times. Yeah. That's on you. You didn't give it all the framework that it needed to operate within. So I'll stop there for a second to take a drink. But, I think agents need to be governed just like we govern people.
Want more Insight Jam? Follow us on Instagram for exclusive content like a daily dose of best practices and buying advice from industry experts and leading solution providers. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel for long-form highlights from our expert panel discussions. The Solutions Review team is hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so don't miss out.
Yeah, and by the way, that scenario you described, that is going to happen. I mean, we're already seeing those kinds of mistakes. There's going to be more. You mentioned this idea of anthropomorphic words used to describe agents, and I'm gonna kind of go there for a minute because I want to talk about what are the different kinds of AI agents that are out there, and I know that you have probably a much more technical definition, and you can kind of walk us through the different kinds of agents. I think of them in terms of 3 categories. Persona-based AI agents, task-based AI agents, and the third would be business process-based AI agents. And so the business process, well, we've had robotic process automation for a long time, and those automations are going to continue to get smarter. and they'll be able to do what we've described as an AI agent, to be able to reason, to be able to adapt, to be able to learn, to be able to act, react, all of that. So that's only going to get smarter. And the natural place to be able to have a set of agents is around business process. Second is these task-based AI agents, and this anthropomorphic announcement, right? I mean, there were several of those in that, and they're really cool. But these are AI agents that are based on a very specific task. The third type that I think is really exciting as well are persona-based AI agents, and that's where you take a person who's doing a job, and they have a title, and you basically then build an agent to do the work of that person. And so, just as an example, you can have a data analyst or a business analyst, two roles. You can also have a data engineer, right? And you have these different roles in the world of data where you and I have spent most of our time. And the idea that instead of a business person calling up the business analyst or the data analyst to get the intelligence or insight that they need, they can just ask a persona-based AI agent that really does almost everything that person does.
Yep.
And that type, I think that is initially is going to be one of the most powerful uses of these AI agents, and not necessarily to replace that person, but to lessen their workload. Every business analyst, data analyst that I know today is overworked. And they can't keep up with the demand, right?
Yes.
So they should welcome somebody that would answer questions on their behalf. And it also becomes their assistant. So it not only frees them up to be able to do, 10 other things that they might want to do or need to do that would make them much more strategic for the company, but now they have an assistant. Not everybody is going to understand the persona-based AI agent, the business analyst, as well as they do. And so it helps them do their job. They can, in 3 seconds, get the exact answer with the right prompts from that persona-based AI agent to be able to quickly respond to the person who asked them the question. So it's not a replacement necessarily. It's both to lessen the workload and to operate kind of as an assistant to the real business analyst. That's kind of how I'm starting to see some of this work out.
Yeah, I guess the response is yes, and so all that's true, absolutely true. I was in London, I guess a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with Malcolm Hawker, and Malcolm talks about data and data metadata management and master data management and all that kind of stuff. That's his jam. And we were sitting down talking, and I said, well, really, all these things that you've been talking about for multiple decades, 20 years, 30 years now, I think it's solved. And I think it's a master data management, a metadata management, persona-based agent. All those things that we could never figure out, we could never get done, we didn't have enough cycles, all the things that you just talked about can be solved now. And the thing is that those agents can be running 24/7. All the time. And you can't get enough people to solve this problem, but you can get enough agents to solve it. So, we're heading into a whole new world where some of the problems that we've had for a long, long time that looked intractable are no longer intractable. They can actually be done at scale and with agents. So let's take your more business-oriented framework. And like you said, I am a nerd. I am very technical in how I view the world. That's just me. So forgive me. So this is the way I see agents. We have simple agents today. We've had simple agents for a long time. We have complex agents too, but I'm talking about GenAI and what's going to roll out over the next 2 years now. So we have simple GenAI agents. You ask them to do things, they do it. We've built one at EY called Deal and Delivery Assist, and it generates proposals. People go in and answer a few questions, and it generates a first draft of a proposal. It's not good enough to hand to a client, but it's good enough for a first draft, and it's very fast. It takes a few minutes to generate it. So simple agents here today. All right. Complex agents, or intelligent agents is a better way to say it. We're going to have those in 3 to 6 months. And that's where, as you said, they're adaptable, they're intelligent, they're triggered, they're proactive. We're going to have all that in just a few months. And when we go to intelligent agents, we also go to multiple agents. So single agents, unified, alone, one agent. Intelligent agents, many agents. All right. And then at the end of that many agent phase, we go to multiple frameworks. So we have AutoGen, we have Crew, we have Vertex, Agent Builder. All of those things are going to be generating agents, and they're all going to be talking to each other across multiple frameworks. So we're going to have that in a few months. And then about, 6 months after that, so a year from now or so, we're going to have self-replicating agents. I don't have enough capacity to hit the objective in the time that I've been asked to do it. I'm going to replicate myself multiple times. All right. So I'm going to be running across, multiple server farms, trying to get to this objective in the time that I've been directed to do it in. And then after that, probably 18 months or maybe 2 years from now, we're going to have what we're working on and thinking about as polymorphic agents. So those are agents that, let's say that I built an agent, I defined the first 3 steps, and that's all I define. But I give it an objective, a final objective that it's got to get to. So the agent runs those first 3 steps and says, how far away am I from the objective that I've been told I have to get to? And then it looks and says, oh, I need a forecasting agent, or I need a data cleaning agent, or I need a data integration agent. It finds those in the catalog and snaps that on to step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7, and the agent builds itself from the parts of other agents. So about 2 years from now, we can define an objective, we can define the first couple steps, or maybe we don't define any steps. We say go, the agent actually looks at it and builds itself, and then comes back to us and says, I've built this agent, this is how it runs, here are the results, what do you think of it? So that's the next 2 years that we're going to see in the whole GenAI agent world.
Yeah, that's I think it's amazing that this agentic thing is going as fast as GenAI. I mean, GenAI exploded because it was part of the fact that it went to the masses, right? That everybody could use it. It's the first time that I started having conversations with family members. They were using this advanced technology, right? That nobody ever knew what I did. When I came in and started talking about data and analytics, it's like most people were just like, lost, that's great, John. And suddenly we had something to talk about. And so Gen AI exploded for that reason, but AI agents and agentics architectures are going to grow just as fast. I heard Steve Lucas, the CEO of Boomi, basically came out and said that he believes that there will be more AI agents in corporations than there will be employees. And obviously he's positioning himself. And that's insane, right? It's insane to think about. I don't know. But it's going to happen, right? I mean,
I think Steve is understating it, to tell you the truth.
Okay. I love it.
I think there's going to be millions, if not billions of agents out there running in short order. We humans, it takes us a while to procreate. That's a biological process that most of us understand quite well. Agents, you could be generating them, daily, and they could be generating themselves. So this idea that there's going to be more agents than employees, yeah, sure, absolutely. I think it's going to be a factor of X. There's going to be 100 more agents than you have employees. I think it's going to be much more broadly distributed and adopted than Steve's saying, to tell you the truth.
Wow. Yeah, you think about it, it's like every business process could have agents. All of the micro tasks that everybody in the organization could have multiple agents. Any persona-based agents are going to be made up of sometimes, thousands, at least hundreds of different agents to be able to do the different tasks that a person does. And I actually think where it's going is I talked about persona-based agents. Yep. That's only limiting the world of AI agents and agentic architectures to the world as we know it today. We know that companies are made up of people. And so it makes sense to think about, the world of agents in terms of people, but there will be superhumans, right? Super personas that will come out of that. It won't be, like the first day when television started and people were basically doing radio shows on TV. Until they realized, wait a minute, we could actually produce TV shows, right? And going all the way back to that kind of thing that people the way that we can only conceive of this world of AI agents in the way that we know the world today. So we're up leveling it, but there's going to be super personas. There's going to be
Yep.
executive kinds of AI agents. And so if they do explode like this, it's like, what do we need to, like, we got to control them.
Yes.
We got to figure out.
Yeah. Part of the problem that we were talking about earlier is that, people say prompt engineering, and that tends to raise the hackles of data engineers and programmers and, data scientists and coders and developers and all kinds of people. I've gone to start to say prompting, because I think prompting is more of an art than it is a science. Prompt engineering implies that there's some kind of science and rigidity to it, which there is not. But I do think prompting is exceedingly powerful and useful, but it's problematic too, in that, prompting allows you to do all sorts of stuff, but it allows you to be very sloppy. Programming does force some kind of rigor on your thinking and some kind of, methodological approach to the way you're coding and building things. Prompting is not that way. So like we talked about earlier, if people don't think carefully about how they're prompting a model and how they're generating or how they're triggering agents, and they don't govern them in the right way, they will be runaway agents, and it will cost companies money. And it has the opportunity to bankrupt companies. So people have to be careful about how they prompt them, how they govern them, and how they think about what applications, they want agents to work on. At this point, I don't want an agent doing brain surgery on me. I don't think you do either. So some people come and ask me about GenAI and agents and different things. And I say, look, there are use cases you should stay away from, where things are life and death, or, that it could cause human harm, or it might cause financial ruin. You really shouldn't be letting something loose in that area until you have, controlled it, tested it, and understood it at a very deep level. And there aren't many of those. I mean, most of the time we're trying to match an invoice to a PO or something like that. That's not life or death. An agent could do that really well for us. So we just need to think a little bit about where we're going to apply this technology first.
It seems like there's a lot of work that needs to be done on building out these agentic architectures, because that's where the governance will be built in. I've been thinking a lot. It's like, well, do we need sort of a new agent language that they'll be able to communicate with? What does the handshake look like, right? If you have two agents and they need to collaborate, what does that handshake look like? And can they actually work together? Do their objectives align? If they're objective-based kinds of agents, are they allowed to form new objectives based on the new collaboration and the new agreement that they make, right? So and at what point do you bring in human intervention, right? So I think those are, the way that these architectures are being built today, from what I've seen so far, is very simplistic. It seems like there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
There's a lot more work that needs to be done, John. And as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, well, we need to create AXML or XML or something like that. So agents have a handshake and a policy framework and a way to come to an agreement quickly. And all the things that we have, I sound like a broken record to some level, but all the things that we have in the real world, we have legal departments to control contracts and negotiations and business relationships and person-to-person relationships. We need all that built into the agent infrastructure. We need policy management systems. We need human-in-the-loop environments. We need pricing controls. So really what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild, the entire business environment into an agent architecture infrastructure. Most people don't think about it. And the simple thing that I use to help people understand this is that, like, okay, let's say that you have an agent and it has something to do with interplanetary travel, all right? And you just happen to be someone who kicks it off. You're not an expert in astrophysics. You're not a physicist or something like that. But somewhere in the agent workflow, it needs a physics question answered. Something about the pull of a gravity, pull of the moon or any celestial body as your rocket is passing by it. And you don't have the answer, but it looks up into a catalog of experts, internal or external or global, and it finds an expert that it thinks could answer the question, and it reaches out to that person and asks a question. I've got a rocket of this speed and size and blah, 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 and it's going by this celestial body. What do I need to consider as forces on the rocket that I have to be aware of? You would never know that your agent actually interacted with another person or many people. So people will, internal to the company, will have to answer these questions because they work for the company. But if the agent is asking someone outside the company who is a paid expert there for their opinion, how much can the agent pay that person? Where do they transfer the money? How does that happen? How many questions can you ask? Do you have a budget? Does this workflow have a budget that it can reach out and ask 100 people different questions and spend $100,000 on those answers? So that really brings into play that these agents aren't self-contained. These agents are interacting with other agents, internal to your company or external to the company. They're interacting with people. They're asking them questions. There's monetary impact on asking those questions and getting those answers. You have to think about all these things. These agents are going to be doing things that are all over the world. So we need an environment that has, a listing of people that are willing to answer the questions. How much money do they want for their answers? We need policy management systems. We need, as you said, we need, interchange dialogues and standards where agents can talk to each other and come to an agreements or have disagreements and refute that, hey, I don't believe you, or the answer you gave me was bad and I want a refund. All this stuff's going to happen.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today.
Yeah, it strikes me too that we need not only to govern but to police, right? I mean, we've got to be able. That's the big discussion around data governance, right? And a question that I always ask anybody that tells me that they do data governance, it's like, well, do you just govern, or do you enforce? Are you able to enforce this? Oh, no, we can't enforce. We just send up an alert so somebody knows that something really bad is going on, and. Right. But I think in this world, you can't afford to not enforce. In the world of AI agents, it's got to be, it's not only to be able to govern and to be able to, create the laws that govern that environment, but also to be able to come in and to be able to stop, the work of an agent.
We're going to have bad actors. I mean, we are going to have bad actors, just like we have people, I hate to, slander Nigeria, but Nigerian princes asking you for your bank account information, that's going to happen as agents too. It's just one of those things. You're going to have to be able to certify agents. You're going to have to be able to repudiate other agents. You're going to be able to block agents. This all the things that happen in the real world are going to happen in this agentic infrastructure and architecture.
Yeah, and in some ways they're already happening, right? There are banks of AI agents right now that are pretending to be people and, using news or creating information that we all are digesting, not knowing for sure whether or not what's on the other end is really a person or just an agent, a computer, right? And when that starts impacting somebody's wallet and somebody's company, that is a much bigger issue, not just because it impacts them, but also from a regulatory and compliance perspective.
True.
So there's a whole realm of regulation and compliance that needs to be developed around this. And the Europeans were the first to bring something to bear, and I'm not one that necessarily likes being regulated, but we have to be regulated.
We do. Yeah, 6.5 years ago when GDPR came out, I was one of the people who was like, oh boy, this is trouble. I'm now on one of the biggest cheerleaders for GDPR and the EU AI Act and the Digital Markets Act and all those kind of things. I don't know how long it's going to take the EU to get its act together on agents, but I'm cheerleading all the way. I'm like, look, this has got to happen. When you and I started in this business way back when, we were doing data and analytics, nobody really ever thought of using it in a nefarious way. I mean, some people might say that our work for Kellogg and Coke and all that, Kimberly-Clark, was nefarious and that we were trying to get the best price for the products in the marketplace. But, we weren't trying to rip anybody off. But, there are bad actors now that are using data and analytics for untold purposes. So we do need to be regulated. We have to be regulated. The regulation is required at this point.
So given that this explosion of AI agents is coming similar to what we've seen in the last 2 years with generative AI, what do we need to be telling leaders? What do leaders need to know? What do they need to do? What's your advice?
This is happening. This whole idea, I hear people saying, oh, well, blockchain didn't really do anything and the metaverse wasn't anything. And I'm like, yep, those two were flops. They were useless and harmful in some way. They sucked up a lot of time and economic value that could have been used somewhere better. We'll get hate mail from the blockchain people, I'm sure. But, this is happening. So, if you really, want your company to be competitive and forward thinking, you are going to have to be using GenAI. You are going to have to be thinking about your agent infrastructure and architecture and how it fits into your business. Like I said, if you're a surgeon, GenAI probably doesn't fit into your business. So when you're in the operating theater, but it certainly does fit into your business when you're trying to understand, is there anybody in the field of cardiothoracic surgery doing something that is reducing the time of recovery? You should be looking at those things. So It's either informational for you. It has some impact on all of us. So this is happening. This is not a fad. This is something that you need to, get your business strategist and your technologist to be working on almost immediately.
Yeah, I think I would throw in there just AI literacy too, programs for the executive team, AI literacy for the executive team, plus for the employees. I mean, people have to know what's coming. They have to understand how to use it, how to govern it. And there's a lot of people that fell behind significantly because they didn't do data literacy, and they're still trying to catch up with that.
Yep.
The same thing's going to happen, only it's going to happen a lot faster, and the impact is going to be a lot bigger. So now, actually, I believe is the time. I want to do a whole segment on my podcast just on AI literacy, because I think it's so important, and it's something that executives can do now. They can begin to learn, and not just from vendors, right? I mean, there's a lot of good things that vendors are saying, but there's so much money that's been pumped into this AI market that there's far too much money to be spent on marketing right now. And so a lot of what the market is getting and what executives are receiving is only the voices of the vendors. And I'm not implying that vendors can't be trusted, but everyone has an agenda. They have their own agenda. And so if you go in as an executive and you are seeking information and literacy about AI from a vendor, you have to recognize this is their point of view. They have an agenda. They want to sell you something. So broaden out your literacy about AI and generative AI beyond what vendors are saying.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And, there's a lot of content that are out there in universities and online universities and traditional universities. You can talk to professors, you can talk to, thought leaders, you can talk to, you can ask questions of GenAI. There's lots of ways to raise your AI literacy, and executives do need to do that. So point well made, John.
Yeah, I think they should connect with John Thompson and call him, because that is a fantastic source for executives to be able to get some information.
Well, I just got the final approval last week for my new class at Michigan. So I am a professor. So I am a thought leader and an author, and I'm happy to talk to people about this topic. There's no doubt about it.
That's awesome. What is your course? Can you mind talking a little
Yeah,
about it?
it's actually based on my second book, Building Analytics Teams. So I'm going to be teaching that, and then I'm in the process of defining 60 different modules on AI, all the way from what is AI, all the way to AI agents. So it's going to be a series of 60 different online courses that you can take at your leisure. You can start at 2 and go to 3, or start at 2 and go to 60, or start at 1 and go to 40, whatever you want. And it's going to be a way for people to raise their AI literacy.
Wow. I sign me up. For the listeners out there, you might have thought that I knew about that. I knew nothing about that, but I would love to be a part of that course. So it'll be online. So is it, college level credit, or is it,
that's the question. I'm not really sure how they're going to accreditate it at this point. It's going to be associated with the University of Michigan, and we're just starting to design it right now. So it'll probably take us a year to get all those put together and produced in the studio and up on online platforms like Coursera and others. But yeah, it's really funny that you said that you brought it up, because really, listeners, there was no discussion between John and I before this about that. So when he brought it up, I just laughed. I'm like, well, I have something for that.
It is so needed. John, I thank you so much for joining the Digital Analyst podcast here. What a pleasure to be able to learn from you, dialogue with you. Let's keep this discussion going. I'm so excited about what you're doing at EY and what you're going to be doing at Michigan and your upcoming book. Let's definitely stay in touch. And
Absolutely.
This is moving so fast. We should probably do this again at least in 3 or 6 months. But thank you so much
John,
for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun to talk to you. The only thing that I want to make sure that I'm always one episode ahead of Sean Rogers. So if he's got 1, I need 2. If he's got 2, I need 3. So just as long as I'm doing more than Sean Rogers, I'm okay.
Well, you'll definitely be invited back before his next show. Let's just do it. Let's do it that way.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Hey,
Wait till
thanks, everybody. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. Thanks for joining the Digital Analyst podcast. Definitely like and subscribe to the Insight Jam channel. If you want more information from John, you can find him on LinkedIn as John K. Thompson. And you can also find out more about his company. Really obvious. It's the former Ernst & Young. Now they have the cool title of EY, and EY.com. If you're interested in learning a little more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn or at ferraroconsulting.com. I can't wait to be with you again. And thank you again for joining the Digital Analyst podcast. If you enjoyed the discussion today on AI agents and agentic architectures, make sure and look down below you and like and subscribe to this podcast. We are going to be back in a couple of weeks with more. In the meantime, if you have a few minutes, if you want to check out John Thompson, you can find him on LinkedIn. It's John K. Thompson. You can find more information about his books. And boy, hopefully if you follow him, you'll be able to get some more information on these courses that are coming up on AI agents. If you want more on me, check out ferraroconsulting.com or just connect with me on LinkedIn, John Santaferraro. And I look forward to seeing you and being here again in 2 weeks.